I call to order this regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission this Monday, November 25th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
It has. All are present tonight.
Thank you. First on our agenda tonight is a presentation from Central Michigan University President, Dr. Robert O. Davies.
I'm assuming you want me here or wherever.
Just here at the podium, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to come and talk a little bit about Central Michigan University. This is actually my first appearance in front of the City Council, and I promise to be nice and complimentary. We'll keep it at that. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk briefly about Central Michigan University. And would like to talk a little bit about the past year, my first year here at CMU, but also at Mount Pleasant. And I cannot take these times without saying thank you very much for welcoming our family into the Mount Pleasant community, the Isabella County community, and very much enjoyed being here among you. We've had the opportunity, my family and I, to be at multiple locations throughout the United States. And to come here to Mount Pleasant and to be welcomed as warm as we have has just been absolutely phenomenal and fantastic. I'm joined today by several individuals. I will introduce the important ones first. Andrew Millen with CM Life, one of our students, and also Meredith Wise from SGA. And I say that they are the important ones because they are students. They chose to go to Central Michigan University, and they do amazing things on our campus, and it's just a joy to have them with us. I'm also joined by several members of the President's Cabinet, Tony Voisin, Barry Wilkes, A.T. Miller, and Toby Roth. So thank you also for being here with us today, and I brought them along in case you do have some questions that we could be able to answer. And I'd also like to thank them for all of their support. Over this past year, we have seen many growths and many opportunities at Central Michigan University. We have seen outstanding faculty win national and international awards. And those awards that they are winning are for research, they are for scholarship, they are for creative activities. In fact, in 2 or 3 weeks, one of our faculty members who received an award will be taking 9 students with her as they go to Japan to perform a dance, a jazz art dance in Tokyo, Japan. We've also seen our faculty win awards for their skills in their practices in their individual disciplines. One member of the audience today that probably is going to talk about something a little bit different, is known nationally for his skills in the accounting area and writing test exams for the CPA exam. They've also been receiving national awards, international acclaim for their teaching. And those are our citizens. Those are the ones that work at Central Michigan University. We have lots to be proud of. $17+ million in research grants. We have received over $115 million as part of our capital campaign. We have grown in so many different ways. And also over this past year, we are filling out my President's Cabinet team. We have a new Dean, College of Business, with Dean Moberg. We have a new Provost that joins us from San Jose State. We have a new Vice President of Advancement who joins us from Texas. And we also just announced a new Vice President of Marketing who also comes from Texas. Not that I'm rating Texas, but what the heck. Also very of note, making headlines recently, we have the dubious honor and distinction of being the greatest turnaround in collegiate football from one season to the next. I say dubious honor because it's wonderful that we're 7-4 right now. Last year we weren't so much, but Coach McElwain and joining this team. And the thing I want to point out with regards to Coach McElwain, we always talk about athletics and the importance of athletics, but he's doing it the right way. He's holding his students accountable for the way that they act in the classroom and in our community, the way they obviously act on the field, but making sure that they are going through their work as well. And to me, that's very, very important because Central Michigan represents Mount Pleasant. Our football team represents CMU and also Mount Pleasant as well. So to have that in honor is very important. The other thing I want to highlight, I could go on and on about Central Michigan as a whole, but a very important part is our relationship with the community. Our relationship, that a lot of places call it the town-gown relationship, and as you well know, here it's town, gown, and tribe. And I will talk specifically about the relationship we have with the town. To me, it's very important that we work together. As I have said many a times, CMU strives to meet its goals and objectives. The city will also achieve its goals and objectives. And as the city achieves its goals and objectives, it will help meet our goals and objectives. It truly is a hand-in-glove approach. One of my very first meetings, 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, was actually right upstairs, where Nancy gave me a tour in the history of this fine facility, how once was a dairy barn and now is the home of democracy for Mount Pleasant. And all the CMU signs up there are just absolutely outstanding. So as our students and faculty pay their parking tickets, they see that CMU sign. So thank you very much. But really to see that interaction, and then attended a meeting that occurs quarterly. And you may not all not know this, but quarterly, our team, the vice presidents I mentioned, along with other members from our team, meet with Nancy and her team. Paul Laurie is part of that, as is our chief of police, Larry Klaus, and other areas. And they talk about the important things that are mutually beneficial to both of us. They talk about the community service. They talk about the safety of our community. They talk about major events coming on campus and major events that are occurring in the community and how we can bridge gaps and how we can work together. Again, that goes on a quarterly basis, and it is absolutely amazing to hear that. That does not happen at many towns. One of the things that we all did last year was to have dinner over at the President's house to start talking about various issues and concerns and open up that door of dialogue. And to me, that is absolutely essential. And we will continue those efforts. I also want to thank Paul Lauria as well, specifically, in some of the training that he is doing with incident bias and unconscious biasness, and going through the all-day seminar that you recently did, as a result from a conversation from one of those meetings, and bringing that to action. I know A.T. Miller and as part of our team was intimately involved in that, and that also engaged our police force with your police force and working on those various issues. Speaking of safety, our efforts to keep our campus safe and the tabletop exercises that we do together to make sure that we are able to continue to move these things forward in very important ways. It goes beyond, obviously, this hall here. Our faculty and staff are intimately engaged in nonprofit organizations and other businesses throughout the area on a daily basis. Our College of Education supports both charter schools as well as the public schools in this area in very, very meaningful ways. And we will continue to vet those various efforts. We do have a good town-gown relationship, in my opinion. Could it be better? Of course it can. And we will continue to strive and make that better. One of the things that I thoroughly enjoy is once a month I have coffee with Mayor Joe. Joseph, we intentionally choose areas on campus, off campus, and in the full public. This morning, I'm very pleased to say we had a great time at Robert's. My staff also thanks you for choosing Robert's because I brought cookies back to them. But again, those meetings are very, very important. Also, Nancy and I, on a regular basis, have lunch or coffee to talk about various issues, and we'll continue to do so. Finally, I want to talk about an issue that we all know very well, CMU's enrollment. It has declined over the past decade, and specifically over the past 5 years. We are working diligently in these efforts. We are working very hard to change our strategies and our tactics. Right now, we're in the midst of what we're calling focus solely on the application side. I can report that we are significantly up over last year at this time. More importantly, we are significantly up over 2 years ago as we strive to hit a goal of 2,850 students and 1,100 transfer students. That will put us back on the trajectory of building our enrollment to a number of around 23,000 students over the next 4 or 5 years. There is no easy solution. We've had 5 years decline of freshman classes and 5 years of significant declines in transfer students. Those have to work their way throughout the system, and we got to rebuild those efforts. This is highlighted, for example, in 3 weeks, we will say goodbye, congratulations, and keep in touch to 3,122 CMU students as they graduate. We need to continue to replace those students with new freshmen, new transfer students, and we are working in those efforts. When we think of enrollment, I want to make sure, too, that obviously when students come to look at CMU for their place of education, they look at our campus. They look at our residential halls. They look at our facilities. They look at and interact with our faculty and our staff and other students. But they also come downtown. They go to Max and Emily's. They go to Camille's across the way. They visit the areas that we call Mount Pleasant because they are looking at the area, too. And the more times that we're able to continue to put Mount Pleasant in very, very positive light, it does help us with the enrollment process as well. So again, thank you for your support as we rebuild that, as we rebuild our enrollment, and making sure Mount Pleasant is that phenomenal place to be. Finally, I want to conclude with a strategic envisioning program that we're embarking on. We are looking at a 10-year approach to CMU versus your traditional 5-year. The reason we chose 10 years, we want to be ambitious. We want to be transformational and not transactional. Higher education is changing so significantly right now that if we just looked at 5 years, we would not have the space to do the transformational changes that need to occur. What is occurring? Demographics, the shrinking population of high school graduates. We need to rethink about the way that we recruit that shrinking marketplace and expand where we recruit. Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, New York, Ohio, bring in those students to Mount Pleasant. So again, as we think about how we position Mount Pleasant, welcoming in those students from out of the area, being much more robust in the Detroit area, and welcoming those students to Mount Pleasant and growing those areas. We need to rethink about how we serve students, how we recruit students, how we make sure students can graduate. And very importantly, how do we keep students here after they graduate? And the economic development opportunities that abound will not only help us recruit students, but also help us keep them here. And again, I know that's an important part for Nancy and all of the members of the commission. I am optimistic. I look at the trends that we have right now on our campus between applied students, admitted students, and those that are choosing to come to Central Michigan University. I'm amazed at the buzz that we are creating across the state with our thought process and re-envisioning. The optimism that exudes on our campus is absolutely outstanding, and that also comes from the community as well. So as we continue to build on CMU, continue to build and support Mount Pleasant, I look forward to even more partnerships where we can engage our faculty, our staff, our students, and the citizens of Mount Pleasant for very, very positive developments. With that, I'd be happy to answer or deflect any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Davies?
I'd just like to thank you for your support of our community. As you said, it's a hand in glove. We need to work together. I've been around long enough that we've had CMU presidents that weren't the most responsive to the city's needs and desires, and I'm happy to see that you've got our back, and hopefully we'll have yours, and we can all work together. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir, and I do sincerely appreciate that. We may not always agree, but we will always work together and do what's best for the area.
Yeah.
I just wanted to briefly mention, I was interested to hear that 90 students will be going over to Japan. As you may know, the city has a sister city, Okaya, Japan, and I wanted to let you know how much I appreciated the fact that several members of the administration, Dr. A.T. Miller and also Jennifer Vanek, have worked with the International Relations Council, and it is an area in which the university and the city and Okaya, Japan can kind of work together, so thank you very much for your involvement with that.
Thank you. With that, I wish you a very wonderful Thanksgiving. And of course, on Friday, you can work off that Thanksgiving feast by going on and cheering on the Chippewas as we beat the Rockets of Toledo at the football game. Fire up, Chips.
Fire up, Chips.
Fire up. Thank you, President Davies. Our next presentation is a department presentation by our city engineer, Stacy Tawari.
Stacy's got a tough act to follow, but we're continuing on with our departmental presentations where we try to give you one presentation a month. And so this month's presentation is on the city's engineering department. And with that, I'll turn it over to Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Tawari. I'm the city engineer. I'm going to give a general overview of the engineering department and the functions in our department. I kind of like to think that we're like MacGyver up there on the right, but probably a little bit more on like the bottom picture on the right there. But our department is located here at the City Hall building. We have a total staff of 4, including myself, Stefan Bose, GIS specialist, Jen Flax, engineering technician, and Robin Liptow, engineering technician. The engineering department works with the city government and other city departments to plan, design, and manage current and future city infrastructure projects. We typically begin the project planning phase about 6 years or more before a project is constructed during the capital improvements planning stage. Our design phase on projects typically begins 9 months to a year before the project is bid and constructed. That process will take longer for state and federally funded projects, typically a few to several months longer for those projects. The engineering department keeps records and creates maps of the city infrastructure systems. We monitor and record the age and conditions of the systems and any improvements or repairs that need to be made. The city maintains 77 miles of roadway, which doesn't include the state and county roadways, such as Mission Street and Broomfield and East Pickard. There's currently 89 miles of sidewalk in the city, 63 storm sewer pipes, and 44 river outlets, approximately 77 miles of sanitary sewer piping and 12 lift stations, and approximately 96 miles of water distribution piping. The engineering department does an evaluation of the entire roadway system every 2 to 3 years using a statewide standard system called PASER, which stands for the Pavement Surface Evaluation Rating System. It's a 1 to 10 system, with 1 being the poorest condition and 10 being the best condition. We record that data in the field using an industry standard software program called RoadSoft. The next few slides are just some example photos and descriptions that come from the PASER manual that help us in doing visual inspections out in the field. Roadways that are rated 1 through 3 are in failed to poor condition. These roadways would typically require complete reconstruction. Roadways that have PASER ratings of 4 through 6 are in fair to good condition. They might require structural improvements, such as a thin overlay. Roadways that have a 7 to 10 condition rating are in good to excellent condition and typically only require routine maintenance, such as crack sealing, or no treatment at all. The public works construction projects vary every year based on the infrastructure needs within the city, but some of the typical construction projects that we do every year include asphalt crack sealing and overlays, sidewalk replacements, pavement marking restriping, street reconstruction projects, and sewer and water replacement projects. The planned 2020 road reconstruction projects that we have coming up include Michigan Street from Oak to Washington. Oops, sorry about that. Brown Street from North Drive to Broadway, and the alley between Gaylord, Arnold, Bells, and Mission, which is back behind John's Country Burgers. We're also doing a mill and overlay project on Pickard Street between Bradley and Mission. And then City Parking Lot 7 downtown will be reconstructed, which is the parking lot adjacent to Sacred Heart Academy and across from the library. The engineering department also reviews, permits, and inspects work by contractors in the city right away for work such as water and sewer service installations, driveways, and sidewalk work. We provide soil erosion control inspections for all city projects as required. We also work with the Community Services and Public Safety divisions to review site plans and construction plans for private development projects in the city. The engineering department also reviews stormwater management plans and issues stormwater permits. Stormwater ordinance was adopted by the city in 2015. It was a collaborative effort between the Drain Commissioner and the neighboring townships to create a uniform permit process throughout the county. This slide demonstrates why the stormwater management ordinance was so important in the city. This picture on the left is from 1957, an aerial photo. and on the right is from 2007. Both of these are near the Mount Pleasant High School area. The same storm sewer infrastructure exists in both of these pictures, but you can see how much more runoff is entering the system in our current condition. Also adopted in 2015 was a Complete Streets Ordinance. Complete Street is defined as a street that's designed and operated to enable safe access for all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit riders of all ages and abilities. All CIP street projects in the city are reviewed for compliance with this ordinance by the engineering department. Some Complete Streets items that we've already implemented in the city include narrower roadway lanes to slow traffic, share lane markings, bike route signage, and bike lanes. The engineering department works frequently with other local and state agencies on projects. Some of our most common partners are CMU, the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, the Isabel County Road and Drain Commissions, MDOT, Eagle, and Union Township. Some of the work we do with these agencies include grant applications, permits, project coordination, and public notification. One major project that we actually have going right now with all of the agencies is a regional stormwater master plan, which is underway now and should be completed spring or early summer of 2020. So with that, I guess I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Are there any questions?
Not so much a question, just an observation. Tracy mentioned the capital improvement plan and the PASER, and going around the state, there's the issue of not enough money to fix the roads, and the roads in the state of Michigan are terrible, and nobody wants to drive on them. Between the city commission and the capital improvement plan, and you guys with the PASER, our roads are great.
Yes,
I mean, they're there's not potholes, there's not craters where you're going to lose a car in. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Stacy? Thank you. Yep. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight?
Mayor, if I may.
I think you got it.
I would like to suggest one removal from the agenda and one addition to the agenda, if the city commission is willing. I would like to suggest we remove item number 16 from the agenda, and instead we will bring that back to you at your December 9th agenda after we've had final conversations with the Nottawa Township on that. We're really close, but we wanted to make it more perfect before we brought it to you. So we would like to take that off and bring it back to you at your next meeting. And then secondly, we would like to suggest that we add another item to the agenda, and that would be a discussion about a third round of leaf collection yet this year, if you're willing to have that discussion this evening.
Jeremy, so I would entertain that motion suggested by the city manager.
You can just get unanimous consent if you want, if everybody's in agreement.
Yeah. Any objection?
Good?
Good? Okay. So we have our agenda as amended. I will now open the public input on agenda items, which would include a third round of leaf collection, but not Nottawa Township, the agreement there for their processing the wastewater. I do want to note that we have a public hearing for field number 1 for K-Bauk, and you'll have a chance to speak about that particular subject at the public hearing.
I was just going to remind you of that.
Okay.
Ahead of me.
All right. So I'll open the public hearing, and you can come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
I would have liked to go through and shook all of your hands. I appreciate all the work that you're doing for the city. Fascinating to know the engineering, too. I'm going to start coming to more. But I'm here today dressed in my garb. I'm 69 years old, a retired teacher. Came to Mount Pleasant in '79 with my first husband to teach at the university. And at that time, I also was doing a second master's degree and found that the university didn't pay women as much as men. But anyways, I moved on. I've had jobs as a prevention educator through Clare Hospital in the 80s when the war on drugs was going on. And I thought the time I'd be speaking here would be to propose to you, when you're considering the monies that go for marijuana, that this city reinstate a wonderful program they had called Duncan Life Skills. And Byron Doty was the prevention educator in this town, and I was up in Clare and Gladwin. But I'm not here for that. I'm here because I owned a home for 27 years, right downtown, a couple blocks here, a purple house that people think is wild and crazy because I didn't want lawns. It's across the street from the church, and I love nature. And the problem I have is my leaves have never been on the same schedule as the city pickup. And especially this year. Can I have a raise of hand of how many people are here to address about the confusion we have that there's, now that we have our leaves in the street, I'm hearing things like I'm gonna have to pay for you folks to take it away. And I had been living on the understanding, I don't have a computer. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try not to take too long, and I'm pretty nervous, and I'm looking pretty funky here after being in my yard. But I think the system needs to not just have you budgeting for 3 pickups, but for us to be environmentally safe. I have 2 drain holes, and when the leaves are out there and when the ice and snow is there, it clogs up those, what do you call them? Storm drains. Sewer, whatever. And I love my city, and so I could be out there doing it, except I've got brittle bone now. And Friday, I had to hire 3 young college guys to rake my leaves to the street, because at that time, that was the promise I was living on. And then all of a sudden, my neighbors who had loaned me their rakes, wonderful neighbors. One fella is part of the Lions Club. I mean, I've got wonderful neighbors, and the rakes broke because it was so hard. And so I had to have my workers come Saturday and to do my backyard, and the maple tree is still only half down. Now, I've bitten and, I paid for a spring cleanup, and we have to bag it up then. But that would be a nice time to have another sweep if it works. But too much confusion and poor choices, I think, for how you communicate, how that system works. And it's really important. Today, driving down Washington, that's supposed to have bike lanes, I saw a young man almost get hit by a car because he was on his skateboard trying to be in the bike lane there, and he swerved when he saw that, and the other person wasn't paying attention to leaves in the road, and then as I came in, something was said about an accident on Mission or South Washington and another one, and I thought, is that another thing related to leaves, piles of leaves? So I'm confusing you and I'm entertaining you looking the way I am. But let's have clarity, and let's not just be frivolous on how you determine that, but put in your budget as part of environmental safety to have street sweeps that are tuned in to nature. And so I had snow for almost 2-3 weeks, and I keep looking to you. Anyways, time's up. You need a timer when I'm here. Namaste to all of you, and I love this town. It's a wonderful town, but those leaves things always confuse me, and Remember, I'm hearing impaired, I don't have my computer working, my TV isn't working, and my Android, I often get lost on it, but let's have good communication. And let's have a hand for the folks that help us. I know, Lynn and Tony, I've seen some of you, but thank you.
I appreciate your comments. Could you just give us your name and your address for the minutes?
My address is 404 South Washington on the corner of Wisconsin and Washington, and my name is Pat McGann-Zients. But Ms. McGann, when I was teaching at the university or up in Farwell, Clare, McGann is fine.
Right.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Swaney. I live at 1405 Greenbrier in Mount Pleasant, and I'm also here to talk about the leaf pickup. I just found out that that had been canceled this morning after raking, my husband and myself, raking leaves for many hours yesterday evening. I understand that you can't control the weather. I understand that you can't pick up leaves that are frozen to the street. But leaving the leaves in the street until spring is not an option. It's not safe in the neighborhoods, as was already mentioned. It is not good for the environment. Those leaves will get broken down and run over and will go straight into the storm systems. And it's not going to be a good solution overall. I would prefer to have the leaves picked up. If you cannot schedule that, it really needs to be an open, there needs to be an open week or an open time period where leaves can be dropped off for free at the MRF. And reiterating the statement about communication, on your website, you have listed that any changes to the leaf collection pickup will be communicated either on CM Life or on the cable access channel that many people don't have cable anymore, or through the Morning Sun. The only article that came out, I have not seen anything on the Morning Sun. The only article that came out through CM Life was on Friday after the completion of all of the leaf pickup. So that is unacceptable as far as communication goes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this the mic?
Nope, the one by the computer.
Thank you. My name is Pat Kuzna. I reside at 403 South Anna Street, corner of Anna and Wisconsin. I'm going to share the same story in regards to the leaf pickup. Please consider, I'm glad to hear that you're at least adding an agenda item, that is a possibility. I fortunately read the website before I actually, because I had a big plan. I knew the weather was going to get better, and then I checked the website and saw that you had canceled it, so I was kind of rather disappointed that the leaves would not be picked up. So that is a significant concern. I do want to also talk about cleaning of the drains. That is a problem in our neighborhood. I personally have gone out, probably contrary to your city's legal counsel, have stood ankle deep in water to clean the drain. I heard the weather was going to be 3 inches of rain one night, and I already had a half a street of water. So which that 3 inches did come to fruition. So Anna Street would have been Anna Lake the next day. So you're welcome. But I think that, and I have seen other residents cleaning out drains, and they're not necessarily the most stable, physically stable people to be able to do that. So I would express that concern as well to the city. I'm also concerned about the high price of the garbage pickup, a 65% increase with really no marginal service is also an ongoing concern for me as well. I appreciate the City Council's time and your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. I'm Pat Heitman from 911 Elizabeth Court. I also would like to talk about the leaf pickup, the way it was communicated to the public, the way we were told, the avenues that you went about placing that information for our community to receive that information and understand it and then process it. I went about looking in the Morning Sun and only found one article that didn't say about closing the leaf pickup. It just talked about the leaf pickup starting. I looked on your Facebook page and found that the Facebook page did describe that the leaf pickup was going to end, but it was placed on November 15th. I mean, yes, we had snow on the ground at that time, but couldn't it have been postponed and then brought back up again as the weather continued to get better and the warmth of our community started to take place and melt the snow? Then we could revisit this and then go on with our leaf pickup. You know, that kind of made sense to me. And I also brought the weather forecast for the next 2 weeks for the city, so I just thought maybe you guys might want that. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else come forward, I will close the first public input section. And we will go to the receipt of petitions and communications. Manager Ridley.
Yes, under receipt of petitions and communications tonight, you have the report on pending items. You have the October minutes of the Planning Commission, the Airport Advisory Board, and the Downtown Development Authority. You have receipt of the resignation from Mary Alsager from the Parks and Recreation Commission since she was elected to serve on the City Commission next year. And then a correspondence from Doug LaBelle regarding the eCities Award that we received. And then on your dais tonight are 2 communications that came in before the meeting today regarding leaf pickup, one from Francis Lickman and one from Jim Denning for your review.
Next for our agenda is the consent calendar items. Consent calendar items are items with an asterisk next to them. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent calendar tonight? Commissioner Ling.
Yes, I'd like to remove item 14. It looks like it was 2 different numbers. The one on solid waste, the one that includes the Christmas tree disposal. C? Okay.
14C.
Any others tonight? Seeing none, Manager Ridley, would you like to walk us through the consent calendar items tonight?
Yes, the items we're recommending for the consent calendar for your approval include the minutes of your regular meeting from November 11th, and then there's 4 resolutions that are related to traffic control orders, and all 4 of these orders have been in place for 90 days, and no comments have been received on them, so we're recommending that they be made final traffic control orders. 2 of them are for no parking signs, no parking to corner, and one of those is at Locust and Main, and the other is at Washington and Clayton. And then the 2 other traffic control orders were for yield signs that were put in place at Johnson and McVeigh and at East Grand and Manor. We have 3 bids for your consideration tonight. The first one, you'll recall that back in September, you approved bids for the purchase of 2 replacement snowplow trucks, and it was for the cab and chassis of those trucks. And we mentioned that we would bring back a separate bid for the equipment to be installed on the trucks. As you saw in the packet, 2 bids were received, and they had a difference in price of just over $1,300. And we're not recommending the low bid for primarily 3 reasons. One, the blade that was quoted did not meet the current specifications. We have had some service concerns with one of our current plow trucks that was purchased by the low bidder. The equipment was purchased from the low bidder. And then secondly, the location for repairs. The second low bidder is located right in Ithaca, which is much closer than the Detroit area. So we feel the extra $1,300 for the second bid the city will be well served by, and it's still within the allowed budget, or the approved budget. So we're recommending award of the bid to Schultz Equipment for $115,870, which will be the equipment for 2 different trucks. And then next, we're recommending the bids to lock in the chemical bid prices for both our water and wastewater plants for next year. And there's numerous bids numerous chemicals that we send out for bid. And in all of those cases, we're recommending the low bid of what was received. And then lastly, we're recommending a lock-in of the prices for water meter replacements. And based on the life cycle cost, we're recommending the purchase of the Neptune meters because those meters do not require replacement of the register or batteries over the life cycle of those meters. So over the life cycle, they end up being the lower cost meters. The next item on the consent calendar is at your last meeting, you approved application fees for recreational marijuana establishments. But as we looked closer at the ordinance, there's also a provision to set an application fee for temporary events. And we did not include that in the last recommendation. And so we're recommending that the application be set at the same dollar amount, $200 per application. But we need to make the record clear that that would be for the temporary events. So we're recommending your approval of that. And then on all of the other rates, fees, and charges that were on the agenda, except for the solid waste fees, as you know, this is part of our normal budget process where we've been in a multi-year process of reviewing our rates, fees, and charges. And we spoke about most of these changes during one of your work session discussions last month. And it's become our practice to ask you to approve those resolutions for the rates, fees, and charges at this meeting so that when you consider the budget at the next meeting, we have the correct revenue projections in place in that budget. So we're recommending approval of all of those except for 14C this night under the consent calendar. And then lastly, the approval of payrolls and warrants.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move the consent calendar as presented.
Commissioner Lalonde.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent calendar as presented, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same. That is adopted unanimously. Next on our agenda is a public hearing on the recommendation to name Island Park Field Number 1, K. Bauk Field, I believe. And Manager Ridley, would you like to introduce this topic for us?
Yes, as you know, we have a naming process for our city facilities. And this recommendation came forward to the Parks and Recreation Commission, who has made the recommendation to you to consider this recommendation. And so tonight, after the public hearing, we're recommending that you name the softball field number 1 at Island Park after K. Bauk. Your agenda packet includes information supporting the request, including letters from the Bauk family, Austin Buchanan, Ron Shoemaker, Ted McIntyre, the Hanson family, and Bob Zarowski. K. Bauk has been involved with Mount Pleasant softball for 46 years, and it seems very appropriate to name a softball field at Island Park in her honor. So I would recommend after you hold the public hearing that we actually read the resolution aloud before you vote on it so that the public can hear that resolution in support before you take the vote. But prior to that, it's appropriate to hold the public hearing.
I will now open the public hearing. If you're here to talk about renaming the field to K. Bauk Field, you can come to the podium, state your name and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Ted McIntyre, 1253 Abbey Lane. From almost all of those 46 years I've worked with Kay, there's no one more deserving. And the only comment I want to leave out there is the one thing Kay did was provide an opportunity for everyone. Too many athletic events involve travel, high-tech, money. Parents can't afford it. And the one thing Kay did throughout was maintain a philosophy that everyone could play. And we did it. Maybe they weren't as nice a uniforms, they were just T-shirts, but we ran a program where kids had fun and enjoyed what they were doing. And she provided a support basis for 2 high schools that did very well for a long period of time. But no one's more deserving. Thank you for considering this.
Margaret Yonker, the retired softball coach at Central Michigan University. I don't live in town, so I don't know if you want my address, but 45 East Warsaw Avenue, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Kay has been a huge instrument to the youth of this community and to also the businesses of this community, really, because of all the tournaments that they've held and the number of people that have come in town, the restaurants and motels and all that type thing. So not only for the kids, but for the adults and for the businesses. I think Kay is more than deserving. She has done this all voluntary with obviously Ron and Ted and a lot of other help, but has spent hours and hours and years volunteering and doing that for this community and for our young people. So I think she's very deserving. Thank you for your time.
Jim McLean, Union Township resident and Little League president. And I've worked with Kay side by side for my 39 years. And I've never met a finer person for youth sports than Kay Bauk. Her intentions have always been honorable, and she's always presented a great program. And we've worked side by side. I've worked some of her tournaments. She's worked some of our tournaments. We had a state tournament many years ago, and she was the hospitality queen and did a tremendous job. But this is very deserving. And Kay, thank you for all the years of your dedicated service to the kids of this area.
Hi, my name's Mary Welsh. I live at 1611 North Vandecar. Kay started me when I was this age. There was nobody more deserving of getting kids involved in this community, trying to keep the prices low. My mom was a single mom. We didn't have a lot of money. And she made things happen. We went to Oregon when I was 12. Supporting Mount Pleasant. I've worked with Kay myself. I have kids, I have grandkids that have all gone through the program, and there's nobody more deserving and nobody in our community that I know of that is out there for just the kids. She wants everybody involved, and she'll do whatever she can to keep the prices low. And I have more respect for Kay, and I know that nobody else is more deserving. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Sartrost. I'm a Deerfield Township resident. I've always known Kay Bauk as the director of Mount Pleasant softball. Both of my daughters have been involved in the program for about 11 years now, and I've actually had the honor of working next to Kay for about 6 years. I've watched her bring together umpires, coaches, players, and sponsors, as well as organize equipment, fields, scheduling, tournaments, and clinics, and all of it was for the love of the game of softball. You will usually see Kay down at a softball field in the spring and summer months. She's devoted countless hours to running a successful softball program in Mount Pleasant for over 40 years. She has extensive knowledge and a passion for the game of softball and has spent countless years volunteering her time to not only the players, but also the sport. I think it's fitting to have a softball field named after her, It's been a pleasure to me to learn the game from her and watching her never leave anybody out. Her number one priority has always been the players and the Mount Pleasant community. So it's a pleasure for me to be here tonight to honor Kay. And I know that she doesn't particularly like the attention, and she didn't do any of this for a field being named after her, but congratulations, Kay. We love you.
No. Julie Maxon. I've had the pleasure of working with Kay for 54 years. She's my mother. And I just want to publicly thank all the people here that came to support my mother and my family, who will probably come if this is approved, to name the field after her. But I know on behalf of my mom, she would credit every single person here for making her life easier. She doesn't want the credit, but she brings people together, and they're all here, and many, many more that couldn't make it tonight. So I just wanted to thank everybody publicly, because she wouldn't do it without all of your help. So thank you.
Seeing no one else coming forward, I will now close the public hearing. And with that, I will read the resolution that would name Island Park Field Number 1 to Kay Bauk Field. Whereas Kay Bauk, an original member of the Mount Pleasant Girls Youth Softball Program in 1974, acting president of the program since 1981, and lifelong supporter of girls' youth softball, created opportunities for hundreds of girls annually in the Mount Pleasant community. And whereas her leadership with the softball program substantially contributed to Island Park facility improvements in partnership with the City of Mount Pleasant that benefited the youth softball program and the City of Mount Pleasant. And whereas Kay contributed to the building of 4 softball diamonds with agreement between the City of Mount Pleasant and Union Township. And whereas her passion to leave no child left inside, providing outdoor opportunity to all through grassroots programming, continues to live on in Mount Pleasant under her leadership and sets a positive standard for the future. And whereas Kay is the heart and soul of the girls' softball program and does everything under their mission of providing positive life experiences for all kids. And whereas she has helped to showcase the Mount Pleasant community as a destination location for softball in the state of Michigan. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Commission, on behalf of the program participants and citizens of the Mount Pleasant community, recognize Kay Bauk's selfless and substantial contribution to the youth of the community, and further, officially name softball field number 1 at Island Park, Kay Bauk Field. Commissioner Kulik.
I move the resolution.
Commissioner Toles.
Support.
Commissioner Kulik.
I've known Kay since we moved to Mount Pleasant in 1988, and it's been a pleasure working with her, and this is the very least the city can do to recognize all her years of service to our community. Thank you, Kay.
I don't know Kay Bauk, and it's obviously it's nice to see you here today. And yeah, if you'd like to say something, please.
Thank you, all my friends back there. Oh my gosh. First of all, I'd really like the City Commission for all your support for the youth sports in Mount Pleasant. It's just been wonderful. I know this is supposed to be a surprise tonight, and I'm kind of surprised all the people that have spoke before about the leaf pickup and all that. I didn't know what this was about, Steve just said, show up on Monday. I said, fine, whatever you want. I do whatever he says. And Thursday night, I received a phone call from Darpeska, who's coach in Ithaca and lives in Alma. And he said, congratulations on having a field named after you. And I said, well, I won't tell you exactly what I said to him because it wasn't real, the language wasn't real great. But, and I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, my wife read about it in the minutes of the meeting or something. So I want to let you know, yes, your communication's great because people in Alma are reading it. What can I say? And had I read it, what can I say, you know? I volunteered for this years ago, got involved in it, and I always felt that you should volunteer for something. And I know every person in this room volunteers for their church or just a number of things, and mine just happened to be softball. And it just kept going and going and going. But part of this is I have 5 kids, and they had wonderful opportunities here, just wonderful opportunities. So I just kept going with it. I want to give you a little history of the field, and I'm feeling Field 1 is a real special field, and I don't know if you all know this, but we used to have a grandstand down there. It was a men's fast pitch field for a number of years. And if it comes to a point where we can add a name or add names to that field, not just mine, I feel very strongly that it was a men's field for the first few years. And if there comes a point we can do that, I would be more than proud to have that added. Because that's the way I've always kind of felt of that field. I mean, it's a girls' field now, but it was the men's field, and there's a lot of history there. I also have, I don't know, not so good memories from there. My husband played ball down there, and the first time I went down there, we all had, the mothers would all take the kids, and we'd be in the outfield. We'd park our cars in the outfield, and kids could run around. First night there, Bob Pickens hits a home run. Boom, windshield. Well, that's not the worst part of it. 3 weeks later, I'm not very smart. Go in the outfield, park again. It's not going to happen again. Boom, windshield. So anyway, that's a little history of that field. So thank you so much for naming the field after me. There are some people that I really have to thank. And there's a lot of people here that I should thank, and their name's not on my list, so don't be mad at me. I'm not even thanking Julie. Alice Gunner and Virginia McQuaid were the 2 ladies that started this in 1974. I came in the second year as a coach. Over the years, we've had Buck Buchanan, Bob Pickens, Sue Wendrow, Jim McLean, Dean Verliger. Dean Verliger single-handedly built all 4 fields with the help from monies from the city and leases and whatever. Jim McLean, Margot, and my brother from another mother, Ron Shoemaker, who has been with me for I don't know how many years now. The 2 high school coaches that have just been a big part of this. Also to the city, my city people, hi city people. I started off with Rob, ended up with Chris, Hofer. The most important people in Parks and Rec are the 2 ladies that were at the front desk that would let me in. Also Moody, that has a jar of candy for me every time I come in. I felt like I was part of I should have been paid, really. So if I forgot a lot of people, it took me a long time to train some of these people in Parks and Rec how to do things, and I do appreciate that. We've had our battles. And my last thing is, my mom kept a diary. I didn't do it because I don't want my kids to read all the stuff I did that I shouldn't have done. And my father had women's fast pitch teams back in the 40s. And when I was a year old, in 1944, so you can figure that out, in the diary it said, Bill took Kay to practice today. Now, what he's going to do with a year-old kid, I don't know. But I think back to, that's part of my feeling and stuff. And so many times you live vicariously through your kids with sports. And I never played fast pitch. I played a little slow pitch, not very good. But I am so thankful that for 46 years or 45 or how many I've done this, that I've gotten to live vicariously through thousands of young ladies, and it's still do to today. And it's just been a wonderful trip, and we've got a great board now that we're turning it over to, but I'll be at the ballpark someplace. Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of naming field number 1, Kay Bauk Field, for her dedicated service to Mount Pleasant and the softball community, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. That is unanimous. Congratulations.
Good idea.
Which bar are you going to?
Go celebrate.
Next on our agenda is item 14C, which is consider a resolution to support an amended rate fee for solid waste. Manager Ridley, would you like to introduce us?
Yes, this resolution actually under solid waste includes 4 different components. One of them is for the Christmas tree disposal, which is a new fee that we talked about. Right now, Christmas trees are picked up by city staff and mulched for free. And under this proposal, we would be implementing a fee for that service. And the fee that is recommended is the equivalent of 2 of our refuse tags, which comes out to approximately $6.30. And we've recommended in this resolution that that fee would not go into effect until January 1st of 2021 because of the fact that we've previously advertised the free Christmas tree pickup for this coming season. So we've recommended that one be effective in January 2021. The other 3 we're recommending be effective in January of 2020, and that is for the elective, those that are doing elective recycling pickup, and we would bring that fee in line with what everyone else pays. We changed that fee last year and missed this elective piece of it, so this would bring it in line with what the same fee is that for those that are required, which would make it $2.50 per month. And then we're recommending that the recycling bin replacement be set at our actual cost, which is $7.25 for those bins, but continue to give 1 bin for free for any new residential units. So that's the 4 fees that are recommended in that part of the resolution.
Commissioner Kulik.
I'd like to move the approval of the monthly recycling pickup for those not required to have curbside pickup, the recycling bin replacement, and the recycle bin original for household. I'm not recommending the Christmas tree.
Okay. Commissioner Ling.
Second.
Discussion. Commissioner Kulik.
Once we get this, then we can talk about the Christmas tree and have another resolution for that, but we'll take the easy bite first.
I appreciate that. Any other discussion on those three? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. So that passes unanimously. Commissioner Kulik.
I would move that we postpone approval of the Christmas tree disposal item until we can get a report back from city staff. Sorry about this, but of other communities in the state that charge for Christmas tree pickup, this seems to me a little bit unusual, and I'd like to know if there's other communities out there that do it. I would suspect that the majority of communities just have this as a freebie, but I may be wrong, so I'd move to postpone until a report is prepared by the city staff.
Is there a second for postponement? Commissioner Perschbacher?
I second.
Is discussion on the motion? Commissioner Ling?
I am going to support that motion. I would hope, actually, from my perspective, I just assume we waited until next year as we were considering the fees. I mean, this was sort of left open until we take a look at what other cities are doing, and I would suggest that we then cycle that into when we consider fees next year. I think it makes a lot of sense to check with other cities because that is one of the criteria that we have used. At the work session, I made it clear to everybody I wasn't really in favor of our starting to charge for Christmas trees, and I probably wouldn't even after a study was done, but the criteria are supposed to be both how many people use it, if it's available to everybody, and also what other cities do. My feeling has been this is a service we have provided for free for a long time. It's available to anyone who wants to use it at any time, and at different years, different people use it. I think it's a little bit like the free brush pickup that we've started, which is something that everybody isn't necessarily using every year, but it's accessible to them, and it's a good service. So even if I was here next year, I probably wouldn't be in favor of it, but I think this is a reasonable approach to take to determine what other cities do.
Commissioner Kulik.
Could I add to that, Nancy, when you do the report, I'm not expecting it this calendar year at all, but ask the guys, how many trees do they pick up so that we would, the next commission will have an idea of, how many people are actually using this service, and I think that would be helpful for the equation. My observation is that more and more people are going to artificial trees, and that cost to the city may be getting lower every year because of that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of postponing the Christmas tree disposal fee recommendation until we can get a report from city staff, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same. So that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is item number 15, which is to consider authorizing the city as a grant recipient from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for environmental remediation at 410 West Broadway, and author the city manager or mayor to sign any required documents for the same. Commissioner Kulik.
Move to authorize the mayor or city manager to sign any documents required by Eagle for the grant funds associated with 410 West Broadway project.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
Second.
Manager Ridley, would you like to introduce this topic?
Yeah, as we've previously discussed, Michigan Community Capital has been working with their environmental consultant and with the State Eagle on the additional testing at the 410 West Broadway site. And based on the testing that they've done as part of their due diligence, they've identified the appropriate remediation that may be needed based on what was found and what due care is needed over the future, and whether and the possibility that specialized foundations may be needed for the site. Eagle has grant funds available that will assist with this work, and like prior grants that we've explored for this site, the city would be the recipient, but Michigan Community Capital would do the work as part of their construction. The grant amount would be a not-to-exceed amount of $580,000. And so, as the motion said, we're recommending that you authorize the mayor and the manager to sign any documents that are needed by Eagle if this grant is awarded.
Commissioner Kulik.
The budget that was in our packet indicates that there's $48,300 for project management and administration. Since we are technically the recipient of the grant and are going to be signing papers to go to the state and verifying that these funds are used in the way that the state is designating, will we be able to get any of that project administration money for whoever on our staff is doing that stuff?
We haven't had that detailed of discussions yet because we, depending on the grant, we would have to determine what we would need to do versus what the developer would need to do. I think that's certainly a potential, but we haven't gotten into that level of detailed discussion yet.
I would urge you to tap into some of that if it's possible.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Toles.
I will not be supporting this. I can't believe this just keeps ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. We reduced the price of the property. They've got a $50 million grant from the Treasury Department. They received another $150 million, which they can loan as a bank to people that are going into this project as Green Tree. Green Tree has still not acquired all their funds to go forward with this. We have no signed paperwork on this. And what happens is this exceeds the $580,000. Who's on the hook for the rest of the cleanup? The city and taxpayers?
No, the developer is. Michigan Community Capital is. Once they purchase the property at the end of this year, they're purchasing it as is.
Well, why is the city, if they're purchasing as is, have to do this grant writing for this? Why don't they just do it? And it's not like they don't have the funds to do it. They have $200 million. Why is the city doing it? And if we would have sold this to one of the other people like Mercantile, we wouldn't even be here. This is ridiculous.
Major Ridley, is it true that this grant has to be going through a government organization?
That's what Eagle has told us, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Kulik.
You know, we've been hearing this for I don't know how long, that if we had sold this property to somebody else, we wouldn't, all the environmental problems down there wouldn't be the city's. I don't believe that. I don't believe it for a minute. I think what's happened is these folks have done more due diligence, they've done more soil boring, they've done more testing, they've done more of everything to know all of the costs. And these grant funds are available to encourage development in communities, in the core areas of communities, so that development doesn't take place out in greenfield areas, and that we can have a denser downtown in our communities and provide more vitality in our communities. I will be supporting this. We've worked for 10 years to try to get development on that property, and we're this close. And if Mount Pleasant doesn't get this money for this project, it's going to go someplace else. It's going to go to Detroit or Flint or Pontiac or Saginaw or Muskegon or Kalamazoo or someplace else. It's not going to come here. This is our tax dollars. It's coming back to us.
Seeing no other discussion, all those, Commissioner Toles.
One other quick comment. The amount that they're putting in this project and the return on it just doesn't make any common sense, and it wouldn't make any common sense to any business person. You're spending $16 million and getting under a 5% return back. These people are gonna build this project 5 years down the line, they're gonna be gone, and that's gonna be Section 8 housing. Mark my word. Thank you.
I guess just to address those, Michigan Community Capital is not a for-profit organization. They're a nonprofit that they specialize in development projects like the one that we have next door. And really the end goal is to add to the community. It is not a profit-driven organization. So it does look different than what other for-profit organizations would look at. As well as part of our agreement is that this housing will not be slated for low-income housing, and Michigan Community Capital has expressed interest in owning this building for the long term. So all those in favor of approving the grant, authorizing to be the grant recipient from Eagle, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed, the same.
Aye.
So that passes 5-2 with Tolis and Gillis in opposition. Next on our agenda is item number 17, to consider a closed session pursuant to subsection 8A of the Open Meetings Act to consider a periodic personnel evaluation. Commissioner Kulik.
So moved.
Commissioner Ling.
Second.
I believe we will go into a roll call vote.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Perschbacher,
Yes.
Commissioner Ling,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Kulik,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gillis,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
motion passes.
Next on our agenda is item number 19, which is our third round of leaf collection for the year. And I would let Manager Ridley introduce this topic for us.
First of all, I guess I would like to start out by apologizing that the weather has had such an impact on our planned service levels. But before I identify for you what I think the options we have are available, I guess I would like to frame a little bit of the background just to help understand how we got where we are. And if you look back even to the first week that we did leaf collection this year, which was the week of October 28th, you'll recall that we had snow that week. And already that first pickup, we were starting to get questions about what we might do and whether we might have a spring pickup as a result of the snow. Luckily, we were able to get the leaves picked up that week before too much of the snow fell, because you'll recall how bad Halloween was with the snow. So we did get those picked up. And then the next pickup was scheduled for November 11th. And again, that week we had snow and ice that occurred in Mount Pleasant. And as we managed through that week, we did our best as we had our snowplow trucks out to just do salting so that they didn't put the leaves back in people's lawns, because we knew that wouldn't be a good thing to have happen. And so last Monday, and we ended up delaying that pickup for a week. So last Monday, the weekend of November 18th, is when we started to do the second collection. And as we began picking up leaves that Monday, it became apparent that many of the leaves that were in the street were frozen still at that point in time. And as we were picking them up, we weren't getting the whole piles. There was still some being left in the street. But more importantly, what we saw as we looked around the city is that most of the lawns at that point in time had snow and ice in the lawn, unless you were fortunate enough to have a north-facing lawn, then it might have melted off. But most of the other ones had snow and ice on the lawn at that time. And as we looked at the weather forecast for last week, at that point in time, it was supposed to be very cold at night, wasn't going to be in the 30s during the day, and there was more snow predicted mid to late that week. So when we made the decision that it probably didn't make sense to do the third collection, and instead we should do it in the spring, we did that fully thinking we were helping residents out because we didn't think they would be able to rake their leaves and even get them out in the street. So that became the basis of the decision that was made last Monday. As the week went on, obviously the weather didn't end up being the way it was predicted, as often happens in Michigan, as we well know. And we started to get more and more of the phone calls, just as I'm sure you did, about people not being aware that the change had occurred. And we had sent the information out to all of our local radio and newspapers on Monday. We had updated our website, our city calendar, and our social media, and had updated all of our traditional communication channels. So we had tried to use the mechanisms we had available to get the word out. But as the week went on, it became more and more apparent that more and more people in the city didn't realize that we had announced the elimination of the third collection. One thing we did learn during the week is people really do read our newsletters, because a number of people talked about what the newsletter had said. So that was good news to learn that. But really the only other suggestion that came up that we might have been able to use to get the word out was to potentially use our Code Red system. And we had not done that because we typically think of that as a system for emergencies. But when I look at the citywide impact of this decision, it might have been a good use of that system to do that. So what we did at the end of last week, because of how many people had not heard about it, is we went through the city towards the end of the week and did an additional pickup of what we thought were the straggler piles for the people who had not heard, and again, thought we were doing a good thing, helping people out by getting the leaves that were there by Friday. But fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, we had a pretty nice weekend. It was a pretty beautiful weather weekend. And so, as you might expect, a number of people were still out raking this weekend. And as we drove around the city today, we've identified probably between 300 or 400 locations that have leaves in front of their houses because they did the raking this weekend, either because they didn't know, because the weather was so good, they felt like we might make a different decision, or just because they thought they wanted to get them out of the yard. But that isn't way too many to be leaving in the street or be trying to find ways to help those people make other decisions. So there's a number of options we have available to us, but I think the one that probably makes the most sense is that we go ahead and schedule a third collection yet this fall. The reason it's before you tonight is really twofold. One is there's a financial obligation for doing that, and typically we try to bring those financial obligations to you for consideration. And plus, quite frankly, it was just convenient that we had a meeting tonight to be able to get your collective input in the process. But it seems like it probably does make the most sense to do a third collection. I say that, though, recognizing that we're going to have a certain group of individuals who are not going to be happy if we do a third collection system, because we have a group of individuals who made decisions either last week or this week to either bag their leaves and take them somewhere, or they made a decision to just mulch them up in their lawn, or they made a decision to put them in piles somewhere in their lawn. So I would anticipate that some of those individuals, when they hear we've scheduled a third collection pickup, if you agree with that, are not going to be happy with us changing again. But recognizing that nothing we do is going to make 100% of the people happy, I think that consideration should be given to the third collection system. When we talked about it today, about when should we do that, the more we talked about it, we think that our recommendation for you, if you're willing to do the third collection, would be that we do it next week. Our concern is if we do it this week, it's a short work week, it's a holiday week, many people are traveling this week, and quite frankly, we don't know that we can pick up everything that's out there in the next couple work days. So we were thinking that if we waited and did it next week, it would give individuals who do want to rake into the street more time to do so if they hear about the change again. But the biggest risk in doing it, other than these people who may not be happy, is there is a prediction of snow again this weekend. Now, this morning when we looked at it, most of the days were 1 to 3 inches. When we looked at it this afternoon, it was maybe 1 inch. So who knows how much snow we're going to get this weekend, if any. But if the leaves are out there and we do get snow, we'll have to do our best to pick them up next week as best we can. The biggest risk we run is if we get a lot of snow, it's going to be pretty hard not to plow the streets and put those back in the lawns. But I guess that's the biggest risk in doing it next week. So I guess if you were looking for my recommendation tonight, I think that what the staff would recommend is that we schedule a third collection period that would start taking place on Tuesday, December 3rd. And that would give us additional time to try to get the word out. We have both newspapers here, so maybe they can help us by running a front page story. I think we could consider using the Code Red system, which might get another group of people. And then we will use all of our traditional methods as well that we've used in the past. Now, are we going to reach everybody? No, we don't have a mechanism that reaches everybody, but I think it would reach a number of people. We will have some people who disagree with the decision based on the decisions they've already made, but it would get the majority of the leaves out of the streets and out of the catch basins. Now, there is a financial cost for doing that, and we have enough money in this year's budget to do it because we had 3 collections budgeted this year. So really, our additional cost comes in next spring because since we told so many people we were doing a spring pickup, it seems like we should still offer that service in the spring. So we would need to bring you a budget amendment for that additional pickup in the spring. So we could work in the numbers and bring that budget amendment to you later. But we're looking for your feedback on that suggestion and see where you want to go with this leaf collection for this fall.
Vice Mayor Gillis.
I move that we do a third leaf pickup starting next week on December 3rd to eliminate the leaves that are already in the streets.
Commissioner Perschbacher.
I second that.
I'd just like to say that obviously the weather is something that here in my time at the city, it has been a reoccurring issue with any issue that we deal with, whether it be snow removal or leaf pickup. We live in Michigan, and it's a very unpredictable environment when it comes to the weather. And so I want to thank staff for all the hard work that they do. And frankly, a lot of people have reached out to the commission, and driving around town, you do see a lot of piles of leaves. In fact, yesterday on my way home from work, I was on the phone with someone who was telling me how they really supported another leaf pickup by the city, and at the same time, while I was stopped at a red light, I saw somebody raking leaves into the the right of way. So, for really, I think some of the obvious reasons, I will be supporting a third round of leaf pickup. So. Commissioner Kulik.
It's my observation that wet leaves and frozen leaves are a lot harder to deal with than dry leaves. And looking at the weather for next week, we've got the possibility of snow on Saturday and Sunday. Monday is supposed to be a high of 31, Tuesday 30, Wednesday 29, and it doesn't go any farther than that at this point in time. It's going to be a mess out there even if we do a third pickup. There's going to be leaves frozen to the gutter pan and to the streets. Never fear, when the snow finally does come, those plow trucks will push anything that's left back up onto your lawn and into your driveway, so you'll have to deal with it. It's a bad situation. Thank you, Mother Nature, for nothing. I have mixed feelings about supporting and not supporting it. The biggest problem I see out there is getting the word out. More and more people are listening to satellite radio, so telling a local radio station doesn't help. Every year, fewer and fewer people, unfortunately, buy the Morning Sun. CM Life is what, a weekly paper now, or twice a week? I'm not sure what they are now. So fewer people have that to them. There's the issue on, we're as far as notifying television stations, Mount Pleasant, where's that? They never cover us unless it's an end-of-the-world party or perhaps a CMU football game. They don't seem to know where Mount Pleasant is, or do they care? I like the idea of possibly using Code Red. I would hope that staff would continue to investigate ways to get the word out when we have situations like this. I don't know what the answer is. There's not a good answer, because how many people, we've been talking about this for the census. A lot of people don't have computers, so social media means nothing to them. We don't have, fewer people take newspapers now. The radio stations may or may not cover it, and though, people are listening to satellite radio or something else. I don't know what the answer is. There's got to be a solution out there, someplace that's better than what we're doing now, but it's never going to be perfect. It's also harder for the citizens out there to rake leaves that are wet and stuck to their lawn. I don't know. It's just a mess.
I recognize Commissioner Toles, but I just want real quick for a point of information. Manager, really, would you describe the Code Red system for us, just since we keep talking about it?
Well, the Code Red system is a system that is actually managed by the county, and it's a system that allows us to do a pre-recorded message, and we can highlight an area on a map that system would then make, for lack of a better word, robocalls to everybody that's in that area with our pre-recorded message. The potential downside to it is people have to sign up for the Code Red system. So there are, it's a matter of how many people have recently signed up for Code Red and are still on the list that's in that map area. But as Commissioner Kulik says, it's more and more challenging to reach people, and I think we have to use every mechanism we have available, and that's another one. And it looks like Director Loria has some additional things to add about the Code Red system.
I would just encourage everybody to be a good neighbor, and if you know the information and you see your neighbor out and about, pass it along and ask them to pass it along. That's going to be an effective model if we get people who are in the know to pass the information along.
Commissioner Toles?
It just amazes me tonight that we're here discussing this. This should have been handled by the department head of that department. Usually, if you have bad weather and you miss a pickup, then you're going to do it the next week. But somebody made the call to say, well, no, we're going to cancel it out and do it in the spring. I've had 3 or 4 contractors call me that are all upset now because they called it. They had to haul stuff to the recycling center and then pay a fee for it. But in my opinion, it shouldn't be here. A department head should have took care of this. This is not a deal for the city commission to handle. Leaf pickup, seriously? Everybody knows if you don't pick your garbage up or you don't pick the leaves up one week, it's going to get picked up the next week. But nobody watches the weather? And then all of a sudden you call it? Why don't you wait till the next following week and then do something at that point? Thank you.
I guess ultimately I would say it was my decision. The department heads made recommendations about what our options were, and I will take responsibility for making the decision to postpone it. As we looked at the weather forecast and knowing we were heading into December, I made that call that we would do it in the spring. So if you want to be angry at somebody, be angry at me about it. And the reason it's before you tonight, as I indicated, is there's a budget impact if we do something different. And because we had you available tonight, I thought it was appropriate to have the discussion with all of you.
Commissioner Kulik.
One other thought for getting the word out, Nancy, is the, I still call them the Neighborhood Action Group. Is the one that the fire department and the code enforcement people do. Got a list of the block clubs, and, if we get a hold of the president of the block club and let those know, it's a little drip in the bucket. It's probably not the best, but, again, you're saying we have to keep doing more and more to, unfortunately, notify fewer and fewer people.
Commissioner Ling.
I'm going to support this motion as presented, and with the thought that the presentation suggested we do the 3rd, and then we also do the spring. And I'm assuming that in voting for this that we're also doing the spring cleanup, because I think that having communicated that, as the city manager said, I don't think we should be changing that also, which would be kind of like rubbing salt in the wound to those people who took action and were counting on it happening in the spring. So I'm in favor of it. I'm not mad at anybody. It is always difficult to figure out exactly when the leaf pickup should occur, because the leaves, as our first speaker said tonight, the leaves just don't always cooperate. They don't always fall at the same time, and the snow clearly does not cooperate, and so it is difficult. I'm sympathetic with the idea that we probably do need to try to be as flexible as we can in any given year, because it is so unpredictable. For me, the number one issue is getting the leaves out of the street. Obviously, it does cause very serious problems if they're left in the street for everybody, especially in the areas where there's been traditionally flooding. So I think our number one priority needs to be able to get the leaves out of the street, and I think the suggestion the city manager has made is probably the best way to do that. I also think we need to be cognizant of those people who are especially vulnerable to a change, like the elderly, the disabled, those who were following what they thought was the schedule, did what they thought they were supposed to do, and now all of a sudden are dealing with a situation that for some of them is impossible to deal with. It does mean that some people have done extra work, and I can understand they're being concerned about it. Everybody was operating with good intentions, but in this case, good intentions have left us with kind of a no-win situation in some ways. There's going to be somebody upset no matter what we do. I think that the proposal that you've made is the best way in which to move forward. And as was earlier suggested, I think the other thing is for us to recognize each year that trying to be flexible and kind of adapt as much as we can with the changes in the weather when it's possible to do it, we should probably be trying to do, even if sometimes it means we have to spend a little additional money on overtime, for example, if we can adapt more quickly to changes in the weather.
Commissioner Kulik.
Just like to point out, this isn't, I mean, if we weren't going to do this 3rd pickup, this isn't the only time that there's only been 2 pickups in the city of Mount Pleasant due to snow and ice burying all the leaves out at the curb. And in those years, we've done a spring cleanup, because when the plow trucks come by and they push all those frozen leaves under the snow back on people's lawn, we've had a spring pickup in the past where we've gone and got those leaves. So, chill out, people. The world's not going to come to an end because of this.
Vice Mayor Gillis.
I have reservations about using the code red for leaf pickup communication. Being that you have to sign up for code red, that would not communicate to all of our community members, because only if you've signed up. And I really do believe that system should be used for what its intentions are, which is not allowing us to use it to let everybody know there's a leaf pickup. I do believe with other avenues, our newspapers, our social media formats, and also the fact that the people that are seeing this information currently are going to be putting their leaves in the street. And everybody knows if people see other people putting leaves in the street, they're driving around town, everybody's putting their leaves in the street, they're going to figure out that we're doing another leaf pickup by either asking a neighbor that may be in the know, getting online, calling City Hall. But I do not believe that using our code red system to inform people that we're doing another leaf pickup is a valid use of that system. So I would make a friendly amendment to this motion to try to reach our community members through all the other avenues that we have talked about this evening, except using the Code Red system. I'll need a second.
Commissioner Toles.
Support.
Okay. Commissioner Kulik.
Nancy, have you or Paul investigated, this is a legal use for Code Red, correct? As far as you know?
A legal use, did you say?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
There's nothing improper about it. I'll be voting against the friendly amendment.
Other discussion? Commissioner Ling.
This is just an amendment, right? I mean, from a parliamentary procedure point of view, there's no such thing really as, so we will be voting on the amendment separately from
I
the.
took it as an amendment. You got
Okay.
a motion and a second. This is an amendment, so you can vote on this amendment. If it passes or fails, then you can address that change or not change to the original.
Such big drama for leaf pickup, isn't it?
Well,
Oh my gosh.
I think Vice Mayor Gillis's motion does pose a serious question about what is the proper use for this, and it's something that in a spot is sort of difficult to make a spot decision, but given the time frame that we're really in with the holiday, I don't know if I will actually support the motion. So, Commissioner Kulik.
I'm not even sure how many people out in the community know what the hell Code Red is. If we get some press on it that we had this amendment, maybe more people will sign up and it'll be more effective the next time we use it.
Other discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a vote on the amendment to, the amendment is to not use Code Red to get the information out there for our residents.
Other avenues, yeah.
Right. So this is just on the amendment, though.
Yes.
All those in favor of the amendment, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, the same.
Aye.
Aye. So the amendment fails 2-5. Discussion on the original motion. I just want to make a point of clarification. I think we had some earlier discussion about a spring pickup, and I was unsure. Are we approving a spring pickup tonight, or is that something that we would see next year as a budget amendment?
I'm not asking you to approve it tonight because we don't have estimates for it. I'm not sure if it would be a spring amendment or if we might have time to include it in the proposed budget that you'll be approving in 2 weeks. So if we can pull it off in that, we would include it in that budget resolution that you'll have in 2 weeks to fund that. So tonight is really only about the third pickup.
Jeremy, do you have the motion? Can you read it? Can you read it for us? Yeah.
Sure. The motion is to do a third leaf pickup this year, the first week of December, and I have appropriate budget amendment.
I believe the motion included it start on Tuesday, starting on Tuesday, I believe.
December. So instead of the first week of December, December 3rd through, do you want actual dates in there?
Just starting December 3rd
December 3rd?
because, yeah.
Okay.
I would like to add that I like the flexibility there, just in case we don't know what the weather's going to be like this weekend. Any other discussion? Commissioner Toles.
Call the question. Let's vote on it.
We'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, the same. So that is unanimous. Do we have any announcements on city-related issues or new business? Commissioner Kulik?
The mayor and city manager attended the presentation at the Saginaw Chippewa Tribe, and we were very successful with our 2% request this year. I'd like to thank staff and the city manager for the good job of putting those presentations together for the tribal council, and we thank the Saginaw Chippewa tribe for their continual support of the city of Mount Pleasant in those requests.
Commissioner Toles.
I had a call from Mrs. Lisa Pollard, and she lives in the city of Mount Pleasant here. She couldn't attend tonight, and she had questions about panhandlers in the city of Mount Pleasant. It's like a two-part question. She was wanting to know why we didn't have an ordinance in place like Midland or Bay City was the first part of her question. The other question was she was worried about these panhandlers' safety, being that they're so walking out into the street and getting donations and stuff and possibly being hit by a car. That's my first part. The second part is I had multiple calls on the sidewalk problem that we had with the equipment tearing up sod, for blocks, and blocks. I have a little bit of experience in this area. I've been in that business for 41 years, and I find it hard to believe that you put a person in a piece of equipment and they start doing this and know they're having a problem. The first thing they should do is stop and call a supervisor, and I don't know if that was done. And I don't think it was done, because why do we have blocks and blocks and blocks that are all tore up? This is ridiculous. And anybody knows a blade, if it's 5 foot wide, our sidewalks aren't 5 foot wide. So you're either going to have a blade that tilts or make it tilt before you do it. But it just seems to me you would have stopped and not caused all the damage. Thank you.
Commissioner Kulik, I believe you had your hand up.
I was just going to say we discussed the issue of panhandlers several years ago. I was in favor of a proposed ordinance. I was in the minority at that time. We do not have an ordinance. It could certainly be taken up by the commission next year if so desired.
I'm going to take this opportunity to advocate for ICRH. ICRH is Isabella County Restoration House, and they are our rotating homeless shelter that serves people facing homelessness in Isabella County. And their headquarters is on Pine Street, right next to Centennial Hall. So if you know someone who needs help, you can bring them in the afternoon, and we'll do our best to find some accommodations for them. And also, if you're looking to volunteer, you can go to icrhouse.org, and you can follow the links to become a volunteer and help our homeless population. Commissioner Perschbacher.
I'd like to take this opportunity also to let everyone know that the Broadway Theater is presenting Annie Jr. the first 2 weekends of December. The 6th will be a 7 o'clock show. The 7th will be a 3 o'clock show, which will be followed by the parade downtown. The 8th is a 2 o'clock, and then the 13th and 14th are 7 o'clocks, and the 15th is a 2 o'clock. It's a great show. The kids are doing a great job with this, and you can get tickets at Ace of Diamonds or at Rick's.
Vice Mayor Gillis.
So I'm asking our community members, please share the information that you've received this evening about the leaf pickup. Let your neighbors know that we are doing one extra leaf pickup next week. Well, the one that was scheduled, but put off 1 week. Also, please be aware that the census should be on everyone's radar. We have a few months till the month of April, but if we need to have it be the talk of the town with our community members, Union Township, tribal members, people affiliated with our area, It will give us our legislatures, how many people will be representing us in Washington, and also monies. So it's very important that you keep that on your radar and pass along the information to anyone that is not aware of that coming up. There will be no more workers coming to your doors. Everything will be online. So it is up to you, an individual to participate in that census, and it's very important. I also want to wish everyone in Chambers and community members to have a wonderful Thanksgiving this week with your families and friends, and safe travels if you are leaving our area. So happy Thanksgiving.
Commissioner
I
Lee?
just want to briefly mention, there was a nice article in the paper about Detective Sergeant Dave Sabuda, who received the Advocate of the Year Award, and I'm very proud of the department for having someone who works so well with that very important organization. Congratulations.
I think I'd also have like a shout out for our women's volleyball team, who did really well this past year. I think this was their most successful season that they've had in their history, and congratulations to their coach, who was in her final year this year. I saw a great article in the Morning Sun about this past week, and although I don't think they got the results that they wanted, I'm sure they wanted to win the state championship and go as far as they could. Congratulations to them. Seeing no other announcements or new business, I will open up public input for any city-related business for the public. So you can come to the podium, state your name, and you have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Patrick Kuznoff, 403 South Ann Street. I just want to express my appreciation to the City Commission for the third leaf pickup. That'll be very helpful, I think, overall for the city of Mount Pleasant, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Will you call the two new commissioners up so the folks can see them at home? That'll be...
Sure. We have two newly elected commissioners who will take office next year. Mary Alsager, who you heard about a little bit earlier, and George Ronan. If you guys would like to come up and introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead, go up to the podium.
Go up to the podium.
We just wanted to show off. No, no.
Welcome.
We're saying hello. Hello, I'm Mary Alsager, and I'll be real pleased to start in January.
George Ronan, ditto. January looks good.
Thank you. Seeing no one else coming forward, I will close this public input section. And we will recess for our work session upstairs in Conference Room A. The public is welcome, and we'll be discussing the 2020 budget.